As Ken indicated, this is my first trip to Nigeria, which is pretty exciting. There's tremendous opportunities here, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Not my first time to Africa, but this has been, just a great experience to learn more about the opportunities here, the challenges, and importantly, how best we can position PwC here for future success to really serve our clients. So I'm delighted to be here and delighted to spend some time with you here this morning. Ken indicated this, but I think it's a point worth emphasizing. When we did our global CEO survey this past January, very extensive survey, interviewed over 2,000 global CEOs across all parts of the world, and 75% of those CEOs actually indicated that Africa was the area that they were most focused on for growth into the future. And I think that sets this whole area up very well for future success. The opportunities are, as you know, unlimited, not without challenges. We'll talk about those, but I think many from around the world are looking to this part of the world for real growth in an economy that, when you think about the global environment, is not growing all that fast, and I'll talk a little bit about that. I particularly see Nigeria as an area that can play an important role into the future economic growth of all of Africa. I mentioned earlier I was on a panel about 3 weeks ago in St. Petersburg, Russia, where we were talking about future financial centers for around the world. And I actually think when you look at Nigeria, Nigeria has a good a shot as any, given the potential for this economy to be one of those regional financial centers, regional financial hubs, notwithstanding some of the challenges that exist here. But I think that goes to at least the point around the significant opportunities that really exist here in Nigeria. As Ken mentioned, we're not new to Africa. We're not new to Nigeria. We've been here for over 65 years, so a long-standing commitment to this marketplace where we've seen tremendous progress taking place over the last several years. Before I specifically talk a little bit about Africa, I wanted to give you a sense for what's happening from a global standpoint. Might give you a perspective on some of the issues, challenges that we see facing the global environment. I'd start with what's happening in Europe today. As we all know, significant uncertainties that continue to exist in Europe. The sovereign debt crisis that we're all familiar with, is continuing to have a negative impact on the growth of Europe, particularly continental Europe. Most would say that Europe is in another recession. They'll show negative growth this year. We would predict from a PwC standpoint that their growth will be maybe positive, slightly positive next year, but certainly very slow growth, obviously very much dependent upon the outcome of some of these critical policy issues that the various governments in Europe are dealing with to deal with the sovereign debt. Clearly, when we look at the U.S. economy, while more positive than Europe, it is certainly slow growth, probably 2 to 2.5% GDP growth this year. We would predict about the same next year as well. So an economy that is moving forward, but certainly not at the pace that many would like to see. Of course, there's big issues in the United States, not only from a regulatory standpoint, but also from a policy standpoint, upcoming election, and many businesses, CEOs would take the view that until there's more clarity on some of these big, major policy issues in China today, I think it confirms the fact that all of us really do appreciate and understand, which is coming out of the financial crisis, we now realize how interconnected all of these economies are around the world. And notwithstanding the fact that certain of the economies, whether it's China, whether it's parts of Africa, Russia, Middle East, Brazil, etc., they will experience higher growth rates than the developed markets. Nonetheless, we're all dependent upon one another to really drive these economies going forward, and you're beginning to see that as well. Clearly, the issues that exist in the Middle East that we're all familiar with, the uncertainties there, that is having an impact on those economies. And lastly, I would just comment on the fact that there really are significant political leadership changes taking place in many countries around the world, France, Germany, Russia, United States, etc. And obviously that creates uncertainty to the picture as well. So it's an environment that is very cautious is the way I would describe it. From a business standpoint, most CEOs are taking the view that there are issues that are out there that are not necessarily under their control. These issues are going to be there for the foreseeable future, and therefore you're seeing a lot of companies try to understand what those issues are, try to manage those as best they can, but to get on with the execution of their business strategy, and that's a real trend that we see taking place in many of our clients from around the world. Just a comment on maybe some of the real trends we're seeing within many of our clients today, and what are they really focused on? What are the CEOs really paying attention to today versus maybe 12 months ago? The first I'd comment on is, and this goes to the environment that they're dealing with, there is a fundamental change to the way many companies are doing business today. We describe it as business model changes. If you're going to grow in a slow growth global economy, how do you really capitalize and realize those opportunities? So for example, many companies that historically have had central research and development activities, they're moving those research and development activities into many of these developing markets to get better understanding of the marketplace, better understanding of consumer tastes and desires, so that they can really capitalize on their opportunities. Many large companies that historically have been run on a siloed or a business unit basis are now looking to, how do I get economies of scale? How do I make those businesses more efficient? How do I really start to do a better job at leveraging individual components of a business across greater pieces of the business to get more efficiency, more economies, cost redundancies, etc. So you're seeing a lot of changes taking place to a company in terms of how they actually operate their business in the current environment. Second point I comment on deals with the whole issue of talent. When I referenced our global CEO survey, this was one of the top issues that CEOs talked about, which is the lack of talent in the right spots, the lack of talent to really capitalize on real opportunities. And that may strike you as being a little strange in the sense that, certain parts of the world really have high levels of unemployment, but what it's really saying is that notwithstanding that, there's not a sufficiency of qualified talent, qualified individuals in places that really make a difference that they can really focus on. And what that is doing is putting a lot of pressure on the whole human capital agenda. Obviously wages are increasing cost structures, and so the whole topic of human capital, talent management is one that is really getting a lot of attention and a lot of focus from the C-suite more today than, quite frankly, what we've seen historically. The third component that I'd like to comment on just deals with the whole issue of governments. Governments today are much more engaged and involved with business than we've ever seen before. Some would say that's a function of the financial crisis, and therefore, getting more engagement from a regulatory or from a policy perspective is a natural consequence of that. But we actually see that this is a trend that not only is here today, but will be one that will be into the future as well. That is requiring either CEOs or individuals in the C-suite to spend a lot more time with governments, understanding their policies, understanding their directions, trying to figure out where there are points of collaboration that can really make it a win-win for business as well as government. We see that, as a critical trend. And then the last area I'd comment on, which is what Ken referred to earlier, which is if the growth opportunities are going to come from these developing markets. The risk associated with operating in these markets is fundamentally different than the way most companies have operated in the past. Most companies typically wanted an environment that was stable, that was predictable, that was clearly understood. And as we all know, when you're operating in a developing market, you have issues around government stability, you have issues with regard to currency, you have issues with regard to risk management, corruption, all of the things that you're all familiar with. That increases the level of volatility that goes with capitalizing on opportunities. And that is, my view, something that is much more better understood today than in the past. In other words, if you're not going to accept that kind of potential volatility, you shouldn't be in these markets, because you can't have the upside, you can't have the opportunities without having that volatility. So the challenge for most businesses is to best understand that environment, risk management as best you can, and then obviously deal with the consequences to the extent that there is issues, surprises, or volatility that comes out of it. So those are the 4 trends that we really see taking place with many of our clients as they really start to think about the environment that we're dealing with, not only today, but realistically an economic environment that we see in place here for the next several years. Turning to PwC, very quick comments, and then we can open it up for questions. PwC, we too do see a significant shift in our business as well. I mean, our business mirrors what's going on with our clients. So the shift that our clients are experiencing from the developed markets to the developing markets, we see that. We expect that by the year 2016, about 30% of our revenues globally from PwC will come from the developing markets. That's up from 19% today, so that is a very significant shift. And places like Nigeria, places like other parts of Africa will be a big component of that shift in terms of where we see growth coming from. We see Africa as a very important part of our growth strategy. We see the opportunities that are here, we see what our clients are doing, and obviously we want to continue to be a big part of the success story that is here in Africa. As Ken mentioned, effective July 1st, we brought 17 of our firms that are operating in Africa together to build a more collaborative culture under one governance structure, under one leadership structure, to really better serve our clients. We think that is a huge step forward for PwC in terms of how we think about how best to serve the marketplace and how best to serve our clients. We've always worked well together as independent firms, but we actually think by bringing those firms together that it really will enhance our ability to move people, deploy resources, make investments to better serve the marketplace, and that's what's really important to us. Today, PwC is the #1 firm in Africa in terms of size, reputation, and brand. We have almost 7,000 people across Africa in terms of our partners and our staff, and we expect to double that over the next 5 years, which is a significant commitment to an effort to realize the opportunities that we really think exist here in Africa. We certainly look to Nigeria as being a big component of that strategy, and we expect to double our staff here in size over the next 5 years in Nigeria. A lot of opportunities that we're very much focused on, and we really look forward to helping our clients to continue to be successful and to grow here as well. We're very committed to this part of the world. Last year we announced we're making a significant investment in all of Africa. We're well on the way to executing that plan. That's a big component of realizing the ambitions that we have here in Africa, and we'll continue to stay very much focused on that. There's a lot of different opportunities that are out there. From a PwC standpoint, we think being the #1 firm in terms of not only size, revenue, but being the #1 firm in terms of talent, having the very best people to serve our clients, having the top quality, being the #1 firm in terms of quality, and obviously, being the #1 firm in terms of our brand in the marketplace, which, as Ken indicated, is all about integrity, objectivity, and value. We think that's absolutely critical. So when we think about being the #1 firm, we're focused on all of those components to really drive our strategy across all of Africa, and in particular here in Nigeria.